we're doing this. Yesterday we were trapped. Today we probably should have been trapped, but we have itchy feet, so we're attempting to get to the island. Ah, crap, I forgot to eat. Well. So it's a wet one. I'm wearing my Fowley bottoms.
I should have worn my Fowley. Yeah, so it's Smallcraft morning right now, but it's supposed to lighten up this afternoon to this evening. So we left the anchor light on, and we can always just come back once it calms down. After an epic journey, our fearless travelers approach land.
I have no idea how long it's been. It feels like 9 hours.
Land ho!
Okay, shut up. But we can see land now. We've come so far. The boat is way out there. It's that speck, if you were wondering. Because it's so far away. Almost. Almost. Yay!
Okay, so at the tip of this point, there are just a ton of pelicans. I'm gonna see how close we can get. Pelicans hanging out.
This lake is actually completely landlocked, so it has no contact with the outside water. It's simply a little tiny atoll in the middle of Tangier Island. Now, a really cool thing, you can see that right now we're having a storm and there's an erosion line. And you can see the last erosion line level was a little higher. So looking at the way this is, it either is filled by rain, or else it's filled by when there's really intense storms and we come crashing over the sides of these banks. Because right now this lake is actually higher than the level of the water outside. So it's obviously not being fed by groundwater or anything like that sort. Maddie is here sitting patiently by the river's edge.
Is the chicken salad gluten-free? Okay.
I can cut that more.
So this is the only place that's open today because it's Sunday.
I don't know, Dad needs to show me.
Yeah, everything's closed because it's church day.
Orange juice, all the twins here, winter song.
It's a very religious town.
Yep.
Lots of Pruitts and Crockett's in here. There are only a handful of names, last names on the island. And ironically, this graveyard is right next to the doctor's office. Due to lack of space on the island, a lot of people put their grave sites in their own yards. So there's a front rolling in. Herbie's gonna go back to the boat and bring it closer to us.
Yeah, so it's about a 3-mile walk to where we left the dinghy. So I'm gonna go get the boat and tie up at this bridge. And since there's no cell phone service, we've worked out a system. I'll probably get to that bridge in an hour. If I'm faster than an hour, then we're gonna meet at this ice cream place. So if she sees the boat and not me, she knows that I'm there. And if she sees me there, then we're done. So it should work out.
This is how people did it before cell phones, right?
Yeah. Right.
Bye.
Here's a little history and information about Tangier Island. It's in the Chesapeake Bay, 14 miles from the west coast and 7 from the east. It's part of the state of Virginia. There's only one town on the island with a small population hovering around 700 people. It was important to us that we visit the island on this trip because of its large erosion problem. It is very likely that the town will need to be abandoned within the next 50 years since the island is rapidly eroding away with each passing year. The people who live there are extremely dedicated to preserving it, however, for as long as they possibly can. It's been settled since 1770, and its inhabitants didn't take long to move from an agriculture of farming to one based around crabs and oysters. The incredible thing about the island is that, due to its seclusion from the mainland, its people rarely left and had a history of not being very welcoming to newcomers. This preserved the very distinctive dialect that Herbie and I heard from the locals that most likely has been passed down from those first settlers in the 1700s. It also means that there are only a handful of last names on Tangier, as you saw on the gravestones. Now, I said that the first people to settle the island arrived in 1770, but these people were by no means the first to visit. John Smith is credited as the first European to explore Tangier. He gave it its name because he thought it bore a striking resemblance to Tangier, Africa. He went on to name a neighboring island Smith Island. He wasn't very creative. Before him, however, the island was often visited by Pocomoke Indians. Although we didn't find any, there are supposedly a great deal of arrowheads scattered around the beaches as evidence that they had been there. Today, the island is in great danger. Many houses have been abandoned, their inhabitants forced to retreat to mainland Virginia due to the intense erosion. The water creeps inward on all sides further and further each year. Some families are desperately trying to sell their soon-to-be worthless property at extremely cheap prices, while others are doing everything in their power to remain on their island, their home. The population is shrinking, right along with the island, mostly due to the new generations of its inhabitants. There are very few opportunities for Tangier youth. Most go to college on the mainland and never return. There's very little promise of even a career in crabbing or oyster farming now, and the economy is mainly reliant on tourism. A tour boat arrives each day at 11 a.m. and leaves at 3 p.m. We watched as the people walked around the island, took 10-minute golf cart tours, and slipped in and out of quiet gift shops. After they left, the whole island seemed to let out a breath it had been holding. The locals came out and chatted in their special dialect, the gift shops closed, the children played soccer outside the school. It's a simple existence, and they choose to keep it that way. It was a pleasure to witness the energy, the beauty of the island, both the sadness and the hope. We highly recommend visiting anytime possible, because this is a treasure of the Chesapeake Bay. Hello, Miss Goat. Did you know that you're a goat? Hi.
We've had an eventful day in Tangier. We came ashore when it was still really rough, and now the winds have calmed down, everything's back to normal, and we're just gonna have a peaceful row back out to the boat. So it was really cool to get a good feel for the town. While I was going to get the dinghy, Maddie apparently rode around the island many times because it's not very much to do.
Yeah, it took me about 5 to 10 minutes to get all the way around the island, multiple times.
Yeah.
Each time was about 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Anyway, very small island, very beautiful, picturesque island, and it's really nice to have come here because it feels like we actually experienced something new, a culture that's outside of our realm, and it makes us feel a lot like we're actually on a trip now, away from what we know.
And it was also really cool. We got to talk with some of the locals, and a bunch of them moved here simply because it's so safe. Like, one guy's got a 4-year-old kid, and he's like, she can just run around and play on, ride her bike, run around the island. He doesn't have to worry about, is she safe or what's she up to, because all the neighbors are like family, and they're all keeping an eye on the kids, and he says he gets calls multiple times a day asking if his daughter's supposed to be here or there, because everyone's keeping an eye on him. So it's like super safe, and it's really nice to see that small towns like that still exist.
I got to learn a little bit about the school system too, and it was very interesting to hear that there are 13 teachers in the school and an average class size of 6 students. That's 6 students graduating each year. So very, very small numbers of kids going through the school system, and it's getting smaller and smaller each year. In 2012, 3 students graduated. So it's a tiny town that's growing tinier year by year as the kids kind of grow up, leave, and don't come back. So it's a little bit depressing in that way, since the island is also sinking 30 feet a year, and it's sad to see. The island is extremely unique in all respects, including the accents. Very interesting accents of the locals. And the ferries come, bring the tourists buy things, and then they leave, and that's basically the entire economy now. It used to be based around fishing and crabbing, and now it's mostly tourism. So
Apparently the government put a whole bunch of regulations on the fishermen and made it pretty much impossible for them to fish and make a living that way. So the younger kids that were growing up learning how to be fishermen they couldn't, because you just actually couldn't earn a living that way anymore. So they've gone into tourism or working on tugboats. So the people have to actually leave the island in order to find work, and then they're just not coming back.
Next time on Sailing Wisdom, we head to our final stop, Deltaville, before going to Bermuda. I reef on my own, and Morty does some tricks. Thanks so much for watching. And if you want to become a sailing buddy, you can click the link down below to our Patreon account.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And when you click subscribe, make sure you click on the little bell in the annotation. That way you get notifications as soon as our next video is uploaded.
Thanks so much.